so nice I might dye my own hair.
Do it. You won't. You won't.
I've got.
Is that a challenge? Is that a challenge?
Oh, it's totally a challenge. It is so a challenge.
All
God, I don't know.
Open a
What am I
poll
gonna
for
do?
this week's episode? We'll have everyone vote in the comments. What's Key's new hair color gonna be?
Ooh.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
I'm-
Everyone watching, vote below. And the color with the highest is, I guess, what Key is going to dye his hair. So he's at,
Counting every color mentioned.
he's at your mercy. Oh God. Welcome to episode 3 of Dust by Dawn. Returning with us, we have Rook as Cole, we have Key as Vinny, we have Live Spark as Dominic, and we have Woovie as Georgia. And when we last left off, our characters were trying to decide how they were going to get close to the prince and the sheriff at the behest of their new patron, who seemed to know a lot about them, despite having never officially met them before. But we came to find out that they had been followed for some time at this point. So their new patron knows quite a bit about them. So I believe that Woovie had decided his character was going to try to sidle up to the prince and the sheriff by announcing his intent to stay in Silver Springs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So I believe we were waiting for the next Elysium, which I believe I said was about a week out from when we last left off. The night of Elysium arrives, and the four of you arrive at the historical Beaumont Mansion, which is named after the man who had it built, and for the hills in which the Lars Chateau is nestled. It is now recognized by the city as a historical landmark, and tours are offered at regular intervals on all weekdays except holidays. So, you arrive after hours. You aren't the first to arrive. You easily recognize the prince and the sheriff standing off in one corner of this expansive estate. They seem to be looking around, kind of taking stock of who's there, who's doing what. The sheriff eventually leaves his side to go talk to other people. You recognize the Primogen. You recognize Mamie Turner, who is the mistress of Elysium. Well, the master or mistress. Tonight she is dressed as mistress of Elysium. So you guys have arrived. What is your plan? What do you do? How do you spend your time? Do you guys come up with a plan together, or do you guys plan to go out separately and do your own things?
I might wander around, just see if I can eavesdrop on a thing or two, just see what the general word is, what's circulating, what's in the rumour mill.
We can have you do a presence and presence and socialize, which you do not have anything in, surprisingly.
Here we go. One success.
There you go. That's all you need. Okay. So the rumors are rather personal tonight. You recognize some of the people that are involved. The Primogen of the Order Dracul is apparently having a love affair with the primogen of the Circle of the Crone, though no one has confirmed that. That seems to be the rumor that is most circulating this evening. There are some rumors about the prince and the sheriff and how they've grown closer over the past maybe 2 or 3 months. They suspect that there might be a relationship there, but no one's been able to confirm that either. Those are the two main rumors that are circulating around tonight.
George is not very interested in rumors, in politics, and Elysiums in general. So as soon as it seems appropriate to him to go talk to the prince about what he wants to do, he will.
Okay. It takes maybe about 10 minutes before the prince is alone, at which point he seems approachable. He doesn't seem like he's waiting for anyone in particular. He's just kind of in a corner by himself, almost like he doesn't really know what to do at parties. Judging by how old he looks, he only looks to be about 16 or 17 years old. You wonder if that might just not be a trademark of his former life. He seems very out of place here. But you approach, and when you do, he turns his attention to you, and he tilts his head, and he extends his hand, and he says, I heard that there was a new face in Silver Springs, but I've not yet had the pleasure of introducing myself to you, so I'm very glad that you were able to make it tonight.
George bows slightly, and he says, yes, indeed, I'd like to stay longer than I originally thought.
He nods and he says, I'm very glad to hear that. We could always use more established scholars in Silver Springs, especially ones who are so keen on discovering the mysteries of the Order Dracul. I hear that they're looking for someone of your nature, and I'm sure you would fit right in and be welcome among them. How long are you planning on staying? Is it indefinite at this point?
Well, I see that you have learned about me. I'm surprised, honestly. I'm considering staying permanently.
He nods and he says, that's wonderful, wonderful to hear. I will make sure that the sheriff knows that you're going to be staying, and I will make sure that you are aware of all of the laws of the domain. Speaking of, were you hoping to take out some of your own territory at this point, or are you just announcing your intent to stay?
Well, now that you mention it, I have heard that there were some territories available that currently belong to you until they are given. The sheriff told me about it. So yes, I'm considering taking a territory. As I feel my blood thicken, I realize that I cannot stay on the road forever. You understand, I'm sure.
He nods and he says, it's very good to have you here in Silver Springs. I'm glad that you are deciding to put down roots, especially here. As for the territories that I hold, I am willing to part with them under the right circumstances. I do hold these territories very dear. There are reasons that they belong to me, as opposed to being already handed out to other people. So if you are interested in one of them, pardon my bluntness, but you would have to prove yourself worthy of holding such territory.
Oh, but of course, I didn't expect anything, and I'm at the service of your majesty.
He nods and he says, well, there is one territory that is... The territory butts up against the state park downtown, and he tells you that in order to call this territory your own, you would have to investigate it and solve... He's very vague about it. He calls it a mystery, and he smiles, but... Roll me wits and empathy real quick, please.
2 successes.
So when he smiles, it doesn't reach his eyes, and you can tell that it's a very dry smile. It's almost very cynical and jaded. But he calls it a mystery, and he tells you that he doesn't see anyone better suited to try to figure out what the mystery is aside from you, and that if you can solve the mystery, the territory belongs to you.
Very well, my prince. Anything else that you would like? As I said, I am at your service.
He shakes his head and he says, "That's wonderful to hear, but for now, let's just deal with one task at a time. And once we've established that we can, in fact, have a working relationship, then we will see about getting more tasks handed out to you. I will speak with the sheriff to see what she needs done. She's normally the one that hands out tasks, but I will have something for you. Check in before you leave tonight, and I should have something else for you."
George bows again and leaves.
What about Cole or Vinny? What are Cole or Vinny up to?
You want to go first, Key?
Yeah. So Vinny is trying to pick up on gossip and like keep appearances up. Like, hey, how you doing? Things been nice over there in your grounds? That's good, that's good. While simultaneously trying to hide from his lord in the Invictus. So, trying to pick up rumors, and if it's required, roll a stealth to hide from this one individual who may or may not even be here.
At the moment...
Vinny fears no man, but that thing, it scares him.
So that was an even, so unfortunately for you, your lord and master is at this party right now.
He's prowling around here.
He is prowling. He is stalking and prowling. So I am going to need you to roll your dex and stealth, please. Or presence and stealth, whichever one works out best for you.
Okay, so that's 2 dice. I didn't plan this through. Okay.
Yikes. Don't forget about your willpower. I was going to say, don't forget about your willpower, guys.
Alright, everybody, it's nice knowing you. I'm gonna have to see you later.
Yikes.
I got 0 successes on that stealth roll.
So you feel eyes on the back of your neck as you're moving around, and they are boring holes into your flesh. But no one approaches you. Not yet. Vinny is looking for rumors as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I am going to have Vinny make that same presence and socialize roll. Which you do have dots in, so...
That's 1 success.
So you hear the same rumors. Yeah, you hear the same rumors that Dominic had. That the Order Dracul Primogen and the Circle of the Crone Primogen are now in a relationship, and that the Prince and the Sheriff might also be in a relationship. So now we will switch to Cole and find out what Cole is up to before we find out what becomes of Vinny and his master.
So Cole's going to start off with utilizing his trained observer merit. He's not looking for rumors exactly, but he's looking for the specifically the parties who've been wronged, with domains being surreptitiously revoked, and he's really going to be looking for the who's talking to who and who's not talking to who, and see if there's any patterns that emerge out of all of these wronged parties and then the social interactions.
Okay, I am going to have you... You are using your trained observer, which means that is perception, yes? Yes.
Correct.
So go ahead and roll that.
2 successes.
Okay. So you spend a few minutes walking around trying to figure out who it is talking to who is spreading rumors about who, if they're malicious or not. You're just trying to get the general feel of the state of affairs of politics around. So as you are watching, you notice that one circle of the crone goes to speak with another and then goes to speak with somebody else. One goes to speak with Ordo Dracul, one goes to speak with the Carthian movement, but never to the Invictus or the Lancea, always to others besides those. They'll come back to the person that they'd left before, they'll talk for a few minutes, and then they'll go to somebody else within those same groups, the Carthian movement, the Ordo Dracul, and that kind of goes on and on. It seems to mostly be the Circle of the Crone that seem to be perpetuating these rumors, these stories, and it is very obvious that they are completely ignoring the Invictus and the Lancea. And the Invictus and the Lancea, they don't seem to mind. They don't go out of their way to try and, confront the Circle of the Crone either, This is Elysium. It seems like everyone is trying to keep the peace, as tense of a peace as that might be.
Does Cole recognize this one that's going between, or I don't know, is it someone that he's familiar with?
You do. You recognize a young man who is a mix of Korean and American lineage. His hair is blue-black, he's very tall, and his eyes are almond-shaped. Surprisingly, his eyes are green. They are very bright green, and you can notice that from pretty much anywhere in the room. His name is Jackie Wise, and he is one of the Harpies.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense then. One of the questions for Beath Tackles is who here is most likely to give me what I want, as a sample question they put in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, Cole is looking for people who are actually
displaced.
Yeah, like the people who've been wronged by the domains getting taken back, but more than that, if there's a full organization of it beyond this William McConnell that we met previously, if that makes sense. I'm not sure I'm being clear.
Yes, it does. So you have to make a roll for that, is that correct?
With sympathy aspects.
Go ahead and make that roll.
2 successes.
Jackie stands out the more and more that you are paying attention to the beast inside. And the beast tells you that Jackie is the one who can give you this information and give you what it is that you want. So you wait for a moment, presumably where he's alone, and approach him, or do you just kind of keep that information to yourself for now?
Figuring that out, Cole would end up approaching, yeah.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I have this information pulled up as well, and I want to make sure I have it on hand. Okay. Eventually I'll find what I'm looking for, guys. I'm sorry.
All good.
Okay. Here we go. So you approach Jackie, who, after a moment, seems to realize that you are approaching and stops his flitting about, and he turns to you with a bow of his head, and he says, "Hello, how can I help you?"
Jackie Wise, right?
That is
Met
me, and
before.
you are Cole. Yes, we have.
Excellent. It's good to see you again. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing as well as can be expected, Cole. How are you?
I'm finding myself deeper and deeper into this into a mystery, and I get the feeling that you're a key piece to it.
He kind of flicks his hair flamboyantly over his shoulder and he giggles at that and he says, "I do love being key pieces to things. I do. How can I help you?"
So we some companions and I have become aware that there have been some irregularities in the court, to which I'm sure you are quite familiar.
He leans in and he says, "Oh, you must be talking about the territories."
So he nods and he says, "I have some. We have acquired some evidence that might be rather important to bringing a resolution."
He nods and he looks around at first and he kind of glances at the people nearby, and after a moment he links his arm through yours and he takes you to a quiet corner where it doesn't seem like anyone seems to be standing, and he says, "Okay, well, now that we're a bit more alone, we can talk a bit more freely about this. What have you found?"
The records of domain territories have been manipulated. So there is a clear there is clear evidence that someone is doing this intentionally, and that there is a pattern that only certain groups are being targeted with these. Honestly, they're just redacting it straight out of the records. So I wanted to call them redactions. It seems like a pretty obvious power play, but there's also irregular events that align with the revocation of the territories.
He nods after a moment and he seems to get lost in thought for another moment. Then he says, "You know, I've heard that some of those territories, they resulted in some very nasty deaths, sometimes of the kind, sometimes of kindred. I'm sure if you've been investigating, you've probably found some record of those happenings. And I have to wonder if maybe the prince and the sheriff are trying to keep people safe by refusing to hand these territories back out and revoking them. Alternatively, it does also occur to me that," and he kind of glances around and leans in a bit further, even though you guys are relatively alone. He says, "It does occur to me, that the prince and the sheriff might be responsible for what's been happening in the territories and driving people out of them. Whatever reason they have for keeping the territories and hoarding them among, to themselves, I'm not sure, but it seems like they are definitely involved one way or the other."
I honestly hadn't considered the possibility that it might be from out of a concern of protection, but I can see the evidence supporting that, perhaps. Since we are just the two of us, I should tell you that I noticed your movements, and that there were some groups that you were avoiding speaking with. Not not saying this in a hostile or accusatory way, you understand. I have an interest in restoring what's been lost to those who deserve it.
He's quiet for a moment and he says, well, I know that I am supposed to share all stories and spread all news, but it has become clear to me that certain circles are more open with the truth, or at least their truth, than other circles. And those other circles seem to be very obstructive lately. And it seems to be in my best interest to do my job to keep away from those sort of circles in order to keep the truth flowing. If you are interested in speaking with them yourself, I'm sure I could make introductions, but I myself have a job to do and they try their hardest to interfere with it.
Are you... And Cole makes sure that there's nobody nearby. Are you working with our friend Bill?
He seems confused at first, and then dawning kind of comes across his face, and he says, "Oh, do you mean Mr. White?"
Yes.
He nods and he says, yes, I've been working with him very closely. He told me that he was bringing in new associates, but I had no idea it was you. Oh, that makes so much more sense."
Good. I'm glad we've achieved some clarity. You understand my hesitation, trying to be sure.
He nods and he says, absolutely, of course, absolutely.
Is there anything you need? Like, is there some way that we could aid what you're doing? Would the possession of the records of the territories being changed help what you're doing?
His eyes widen and he says, if you can get me those records, I'm sure that we can uncover something within the week. There's no way that they could hide from something so blatantly obvious once it's out there. They'd have to answer to it. So if you can get me those records, that would be fantastic.
I have them, but I should also tell you that they're simply they're in the museum. They're in Elysium for, I'm sure, someone of position to be able to take a look at.
His eyes kind of narrow at that, and he says, well, that's strange. Why would they go through all the effort to revoke the territories or drive people out of them just to have it clearly who they belong to? That doesn't make sense to me.
It seems rather odd that the documentation is just in the open, but it matches the pattern of what's happening. As far as I can tell, what's going on in the records matches what everyone has had happen to them.
He nods and he says, you said you have the records. Do you have them with you?
Oh, I took pictures of them, yeah.
Okay. He looks around and he looks like he might consider asking about them, but after looking around for a moment, he makes a decision. He says, I think I'll have to go see these records for myself. Thank you very much for bringing this to my attention.
I'm eager to assist, shall we say.
He seems ready to turn away and he says, oh, one more thing. I've heard that the prince is handing out quests, if you will, venturing into some of these territories. So if he decides that he wants to give you one, I would take it with extreme caution, and I would know what you're getting yourself into.
I appreciate the warning very much.
He nods, and then he's off about his way.
Not sure where that gets us exactly, but Cole would want to go take a look, and for the three of them,
So as you're walking around, you see Dominic, who is just kind of mingling in the crowd, making his way around people. He kind of stops every now and then, tilts his head. You see him smile a bit, and then he walks on about his way. And then you see George, who is talking to the prince, just coming away from him. You see Vinny trying very hard and failing to skirt around the edges of this gathering and stick to the shadows. And you can see somebody following Vinny, keeping their distance, but just following along. It is very clearly Invictus, as far as you can tell. The way they hold themselves is very upright, regal, proud. You wonder if maybe you can tell more about them by the way they hold themselves than just the fact that they are Invictus. The fact that they are following Vinny around might tell you something. Roll me wits and... Oh, you don't have any wits in politics. Aha.
Politics, no.
No politics. Roll me intelligence and wits then.
Vinny has angered everyone.
2 successes.
So you're not sure who exactly this is, but you can gather by the way that they're following Vinny that they know him very, very intimately.
Cole would, as casually as possible, you can make a beeline, make his way over to Vinny.
Hey, how you doing?
Vinny, I'm well. You're being followed. Don't look.
Am I?
You are. Someone is following you. I thought you might like to know.
Thank you. And Vinny winks, like, yeah, I know. I can't say it, but I know.
Is everything okay?
Yeah. Everything's fine. Which was a lie. And Vinny's lord would automatically know that. Because of the terms of their agreement. I can't lie to them. Ever. They automatically see through it. It's like, yeah, I'm fine. Just, we'll talk later, okay? We'll, hash out the details, you know?
Fair enough. I'm just making sure. So Cole would, as casually as possible, make his way away from Vinny, keeping an eye on him, though.
Cole can see that the other two are kind of just mingling, kind of wasting time at this point. George looks like he has something on his mind. He is thinking something over. Do you go investigate that, or do you just kind of stick around with Vinny and hope that whoever's following him takes the hint and leaves?
Cole would stay in the vicinity of Vinny, but not keeping him, directly in front of Cole. Trying to be nearby, just mingling with other people.
So, George, since you just talked to the prince and you now have a mission from him, what do you do? Do you go to the others? Do you leave on your own? What do you do?
Well, he smells the air first. He's looking for blood.
Make a perception roll.
1 success.
You can smell blood in the air, and you follow it, presumably?
Absolutely.
So you follow it back to what looks to be a sitting room, as they would call it, a formal sitting room. Among the people there are kindred, mingling, talking, but draped across the furniture, almost as if in lovers' embraces, are Kine as well. And you can see how their heads are tilted. Usually there's somebody already at their throat, but you can see where some blood drips down into their collarbones and into the crevice right here near their throat. So you can see very easily where the smell of blood is coming from, and it seems to be that these people are here either to be fed from or simply you've walked in when that happens to be happening.
He's going to approach one who already has a vampire on his neck and say hello.
Are you looking for male, female? Do you care? Just the first available person?
Any?
Okay. So the first person that you come across who doesn't already have somebody feeding from them is a man who seems to be in his mid-30s, but he's very fit, he's very athletic. His skin is very soft, it doesn't have wrinkles yet, but you can tell just by the look in his eye that he seems to be older than most of the other people here. And when you make niceties with him, he smiles and he inclines his head and he says, well, I feel like I'm a bit out of my element here, but I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. A little bit hungry. You say you're out of your element? Why?
He looks around and he says, well, it seems that people here are extremely open with their affections, and that was not something that I was expecting when I was invited to this party by Mamie. So it's a little new to me. It's exciting, but it's new.
And who invited you?
Mamie Turner, the owner of the mansion.
I see. Well, I'm a bit hungry, so if you don't mind.
His eyes widen at first, and then he seems to kind of remember where he is and what he's doing, and he says, oh, of course. And so he steps in a bit closer to you, and he tilts his head to the side, and you can hear his heart begin to beat a little faster.
George's going to pull out his fang and bite. Slowly at first. And then he's gonna see his reaction first.
Succumbing to the kiss, the man moans. He seems a little unsure of himself. The noise seems quiet, uncertain, but you can hear him give in to the pleasure of the kiss, and he does not pull away.
Okay. So he's gonna drink quite a bit from him. He sees him healthy, and he thinks that it's actually better if he doesn't remember too much what happened to him.
Okay. How much are you taking from him?
3.
Okay, perfect. He does seem healthy, strong. When you pull away, he seems a bit dazed, but he doesn't seem sluggish or lethargic or anything that would make you worry that you've taken too much from him. He seems to be okay.
Good evening. And then he just turns away and is gonna look for the others.
Eventually, the four of you all meet up again. Elysium is almost winding down at this point. People seem to be leaving. It seems to be the polite hour to do so. What does everyone do now that you are all together again? Vinny, by the way, you still feel eyes on the back of your head, and they are not going away. They don't give a shit who's with you. They are following you to the ends of the earth.
And he's just gonna pretend like he hasn't noticed.
Okay. So what does everyone do once they get together again?
Well, I must say this is quite convenient, at least. Your Elysiums. Food is easy to find.
So long as you can get around the, social dance, this is part of everything that this place is. Once you get past the bullshit, then yeah, the food is great.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a
I
life
don't really
lesson.
deal with the bullshit myself. I'll believe you on your word.
If this was your only experience, you believe everyone was a friend at least. Don't fall for it.
What I want. Certainly not after my conversation with the prince. I told him that I wanted territory. He told me that I could have one near the park, on the conditions that I solve a problem there. The thing is I don't have expecting me to succeed. On the contrary. But if anything, it just motivates me more.
Well,
Did you come to this agreement in front of a notary or anything like that? Anyone to?
I'm not quite familiar with your ways,
Oh,
but
oh no,
the prince and I were alone.
oh no. Yeah, 50-50 shot. He'll make good on that deal. No one saw it. I don't know. It's happened a couple
Doesn't really
times.
matter, though. I'm not here for the deal.
All right.
and on that specific topic, I heard from someone that the prince is handing out tasks, and that they are incredibly dangerous. And it just so happens that you seem to have taken one of those tasks upon yourself.
George answered that he had already taken the task upon himself anyway, no matter what the deal with the prince was about. And he told him that he's a field researcher of sorts, and Cole answered that he was too in a way. Then George invited him to join him.
So Cole looks to Vinny and Dominic, and so that without any other leads, going someplace where the prince wants something done seems to be our next best lead.
To Georges, any indication on where, what, who?
What? No, not really. Where? I do know where. Near the state park. And who? Well, I have an appointment with the primogen of the Ordo Dracul regarding this. Perhaps you can accompany me if you're interested to work with me.
Happy to come along, but up to you if you want to come and meet a few friends of mine first, because I don't fancy this, and I certainly don't fancy it unprepared.
Very well, I don't blame you for that. So what about you, Vinny? Will you join Dominic?
Vinny sort of side eyes Dominic. Just says, "I don't see why not."
Dominic, I like your intention to be prepared. What's on your list?
Yeah, of what's potentially lingering around the park. I mean, in terms of what's potentially there, rather than just Ordo Dracul.
Not yet. That's why I have this appointment. We're gonna try to
Sorry,
figure it out.
sorry. Question to GM, storyteller. Is there any kind of other outside influences in the park that we know of?
Make a wits and intelligence roll.
2.
You remember from the reports that you had gathered that this area is known for wild animal attacks.
Rumor of wild animal attacks could be anything. Could be a Rafa, could be some of ours gone feral. Who knows? I've got a few friends that might be able to help us out.
Well, I would love to hear from what your friends have to say then.
Any
Let's
chance?
go.
Any chance any of you have got a gun?
Vinny reaches into his coat pocket, pulls out a gun, like an old revolver.
Good enough. And I would like to call in sort of specialty in black market for some rather unique ammunition.
Are you looking for silver bullets?
Either potentially silver bullets, potentially white phosphorus.
Ooh. Okay. So you can roll your manipulation and streetwise plus that specialty. So that should give you 7 dice.
Yeah. The fact that Dominic doesn't have any money, he's keeping it this minor detail quiet for the time being. 2 again.
Okay.
Yeah.
No one will ever know.
So you are able to find somebody with both of those bullets, both the silver bullets and the white phosphorus bullets. But of course, there is the problem of how do you get them?
After making
It's
several,
going to be a heist
several
like
calls,
in the good old days.
making several calls of can get white phosphorus, can get silver. Does anyone have any money to actually pay for them?
How much money are we talking? How much would 3 dots worth of resources get me?
Lot.
I would say that with 3 dots, you could
A
probably
lot of
get
bullets.
a full clip of each.
And how many guns do we have? Is it just the one?
Just yours.
Or-
Yep.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay.
all on you.
It's all on me. Okay.
No pressure. It's fine.
Oh, and it's a revolver, so it's not even like
Mhm.
clips. It's just
It's
6
like,
bullets.
yeah,
each,
6
and I have to
bullets.
manually load it.
What, you
Speed
don't
loader.
feel comfortable
Speed
manipulating some highly flammable ammunition? Why?
I need incendiary bullets for my old school revolver. Don't ask questions why.
So does anyone take him up on that offer? Does anyone want a gun? Does anyone have points in firearms? I don't think anyone has points in
Not Cole.
firearms.
No.
I've got one. Better with weaponry.
Nope.
So we know that it wasn't Dominic who taught Vinny to shoot.
Vinny learned on the streets of New York way back in the day. It's an old school tradition that he's learned 100 years ago from the same gun for 100 years. It has little notches everywhere from where it's been like thrown out of his hand.
Well, instead of buying somebody else a gun, why don't you buy yourself a new gun? There's an idea.
This is a perfectly fine. This is expert craftsmanship. They don't make them like they used to. If I used a modern gun in this day and age for 100 years, it would have exploded 50 years ago. This thing, I could throw it outside of my car, have it run over by a 16-wheeler over here, and then pick it back up, and it'll still shoot perfectly fine, all 6 rounds. This gun,
Well, I have a
have
truck.
smacked
Do you
people
want to
over
try?
the head. I have beaten people to death with this gun. This gun can do so much. This gun.
That's a weaponry roll, Keith.
I can open a beer.
Firearms.
I don't even drink beer. I can't even drink beer. I can still open a beer with this gun.
It's just
Okay.
Whatever suits you.
There's this little sharp end on the bottom of it. If I put it in a wine bottle right, I can open a wine bottle. It's multi-purpose.
You have put way too much thought into
It's
this
one-
gun.
This is all off the top of my head. This is all
Oh
stuff.
my gosh. I don't know if that makes it better or worse.
It's gonna be his touchstone, you know.
Yes. Yes,
New
it is.
touchstone. Forget this orphan.
Fuck the orphan. We
Done.
have this deadly beat people over the head gun. I like it.
I will now be taking the touchstone merit to add gun to my humanity track.
Love it. Love it. Alright, so Vinny pays for the bullets. So you guys now prepared? Do you head to the state park? What do you do?
Well, George wanted to. He had his appointment normally with the other Dracul that wanted to bring a mage to interrogate the people who forgot everything.
Yes. Okay, so
If anyone wants to join, I suppose they can.
It's
depends on what kind of approach you're looking for.
it's an interrogation, you say?
Well, you will see when you're there. I'm not sure exactly how they're gonna do it, you know. Mages.
I heard a lot of stories about mages. Yeah, I want to see this.
does Dominic want to go as well, or does Dominic want to take the opportunity to go get
Yeah.
the bullets?
Yeah, Dominic will go and pick up the supply. If anyone wants to come along, then offer is there. But Yeah, stay away from the
bullets,
mages.
but then mages. Bullets. Witches. Bullets. Magic bullets?
You could always take the bullets to the mages and be like, "Hey, what can you do with these?" That'd be something. Okay. So who is going with Georges to his meeting?
Cole will go.
I have to go. I have to see the mages. I have to get them to enchant my revolver. I mean, witness their magic.
Yeah, that's what you meant.
Come on, everyone go see the wizards.
All right. So we have
goody.
picked up the bullets and we are on our way to meet the mage that Georges was looking forward to meeting with the Primogen Elijah, the Primogen of the Ordo Dracul. So when you arrive, he ushers you inside. He seems a bit confused at the fact that there are multiple people around, but he doesn't, bar them entrance. He lets them in. And when he brings you into the sitting room, you can see a very elegant looking young man who sits up tall in his seat. He's dressed very formally, and when he sees you enter, he nods his head very deeply. He extends his hand and he says, "I heard that you would be joining us tonight. My name is Willow Seeker, and I've heard a bit about you."
Have you now? It feels like everyone did. That's a bit discomforting.
He laughs and he says, "Unfortunately, that's Silver Springs. I think they know more about me than I know about myself sometimes, so you aren't the only one, and you'll get used to it very soon."
Very well. Well, as you know, my name is George. Here is Cole, Dominic, and Vinny.
He nods his head to each of you in turn, and he says, "Well, if you'd like to get started, we have one of these specimens in Elijah's basement. And we've been waiting for you before I go see what they remember about their trip there to wherever it is that they went crazy. Hopefully we can find that out as well."
Specimen, is that how you wizards call?
He shakes his head and he says, That's usually what we call everyone. Don't take it personally."
Very well then.
Have any of us had run-ins with mages before, and how much?
I'll leave that up to everyone else to answer.
It's back in the 70s.
Only one in the 80s, but 1880s, From what I understand, there's some things you can do, some things you can't do, and some things you just really don't like doing. Question I have for you, what can you do exactly? Or is there some kind of code that prevents you from telling us?
He shakes his head and he says, "Well, the only code that would prevent me from telling you is a personal one, and I don't see any reason to keep that a secret from you. In fact, I feel it most appropriate to let you know that I can read minds. I specialize in doing just that and retrieving memory and, well, there are some other things that I can do. It's a bit trickier to explain, but the thing that I am most skilled in is mind magic."
That's what I was hoping. Seems to me, if we're all in agreement, we go and meet your specimen, as we call it. You have a little dig around, and saves us having the ugly situation of having to beat the truth out of somebody.
He kind of sits back at that and says, "Well, yes, I suppose so."
Unless, of course, any of you have got other ideas. I'll just let's rely on these.
I was looking forward to beating the truth out of something. Alright.
I'm afraid that won't be very necessary. The person who are to be interrogated have lost their memory, seemingly.
Watching and not inserting himself at all.
Shall we go then?
talking to somebody who's lost their memory. Can't see how this is going to fail. Either way.
The mage just smiles, and Elijah actually leads the way down to his basement. And whatever you were expecting, this seems to subvert it. It's carpeted, the walls are finished, painted, there's art hanging on the wall. The largest part of the basement is made up of almost like a rec room. There's a bar in one corner, despite the fact that he doesn't drink. You can see a refrigerator beneath the bar and can only wonder as to its contents. There's a large screen TV behind the bar. It seems to be set up to be a very social place. You don't know how social he actually is, but it's set up to be that way. And he takes you down a hallway to what seems to be a bedroom. And inside you can hear the sounds of somebody kind of going a little crazy. They seem to be running around the room, scrabbling at the walls, tearing at the carpets and the curtains and the wallpaper. And Elijah turns to you and says, I hope that none of you have a delicate constitution. This is a bit difficult to see, to witness.
I think you underestimate who you're talking to.
George frowns a little bit when he hears that, but he starts getting used to it, to Vinny's shenanigans at this point. And he
We
says,
routinely go for the judge.
I would go out, but I'm afraid my presence is required for this job.
We routinely go for the jugular. I think we've seen some pretty questionable things in our time.
Quite literally.
Okay, so unless anyone has anything else, the mage is going to start doing mage stuff. All right, so after about half of a minute, the mage during this half of a minute, the mage approaches this feral vampire, and at first you have no idea how it's going to go, because this vampire is feral. It's running around the room. It looks like it's trying to escape. But after a moment, the mage kind of reaches out a hand towards it, doesn't touch it, just reaches out a hand towards it, and the vampire falls limp on the ground, as if it just was knocked unconscious. And Elijah kind of tilts his head and says, that's handy. And the mage smiles and says it seemed better than the alternative. And after the vampire falls limp on the floor, the mage approaches. Willow Seeker reaches out a hand and rests it on the vampire's shoulders and goes quiet for several moments. You can see his eyes flickering back and forth as if he's watching something. He frowns, his eyes narrow, he frowns again. Eventually he pulls his hand away and he says, well, it seems that these vampires were driven crazy by magic. Like my kind of magic. Who do you know that has contacts within the mages?
We may know someone.
It seems that somebody used mind magic to drive these vampires crazy. They wiped their memory and turned them into almost cannibals, so that the only thing that will sustain them is other vampire blood. So I'm not sure who would benefit from something like this, but it seems that somebody is using mages to turn vampires feral, and I got an image of the two. I got an image of a mage that I recognize, Opaque.
You guys have interesting names, but what makes you think that it's not mages who are attacking our kind?
I don't think it's the mages that are attacking your kind. I just think that the mages were able to turn the vampires feral. Mages wouldn't have any reason to do that for themselves necessarily, so seems maybe there are mages working for an enemy of yours. He goes on to describe a very young man with blonde hair and blue eyes, and anyone who is interested can make a wits and intelligence roll.
Even me? I
Even
probably
you.
don't know.
Nope, even you.
1 success Vinny, 1 success me, 4 successes Livespark.
Dominic knows.
Okay.
Do I want to, though? That's the question.
Cole, are you rolling or are you not rolling?
I was going to roll, but with 4 successes on Dominic, I'm
You can make 5. You never know.
So everyone is able to recognize, well, everyone except Cole, but the other 3 easily recognize the description of the prince.
I look at them. Like, we have a problem.
You're telling
You
me
are
that somebody who's in.
sure that this is mage magic?
He nods his head and he says, I'm almost positive that this is mage magic. But the person working with the mage, it seems as if you guys recognize him, judging by the looks on your faces.
Not only recognise him, it's possibly the worst person you could have ever mentioned to us.
Is there any way that you can protect us against this kind of magic?
He shakes his head and he says, I can't. I can protect you against certain mind effects, which means that no one would be able to come wipe your memory or dominate you or anything like that. That could come in handy. But as far as just protecting you from magic itself, I know people who can do it, but I am not one of them.
Well, that would be a start, what you mentioned. Should I assume that you want something in exchange? Or is it already part of a deal that you have with Elijah?
He nods his head at that and he says, at this point, I'm mostly working with Elijah. We have our understanding, but if you could help me bring this mage that is doing this to your vampires to justice, then that would be a reward in and of itself.
With pleasure, just give us his description and we'll do our best.
He does so. He gives you a very thorough description of somebody with dark hair down to her shoulders. Very pale, fine features. He describes her as sort of mousy, light, dull hair, gray eyes, very fine.
Just one thing out of curiosity as well, and an idea of just how dangerous this might be. How many times have we had this conversation?
This is the first, fortunately. I promise I will tell you that if we've ever had this conversation before, it slipped my memory, and that's not something that I tend to let happen, so...
Good to know. At least we haven't died once from this.
Well, it happens on occasion. Our kind can mess with memories too. I have strange memories of a pink elephant in a magic land for some reason. Before that, I was just in the street, though.
Are you okay?
That was a long time ago.
Was it the 70s? I bet it was the 70s.
I was gonna say, that's when I did a lot of drugs. Any other questions for the mage?
Do you know where we can find either Opaque?
She can most often be found in the library of the community college, Silver Springs Community College.
Anyone up for visiting a school?
Sure, but only after I'm sure that I won't be memory swiped.
Willow Seeker nods and he says, I can take care of that for you if you guys give me just a minute.
We do tend to have a lot of time.
And while you're at it, you said you can stop us from losing our memories. Can you make other things cause people to lose memories? Because I got this gun. And I was thinking it'd be real nifty if people didn't remember when I shot them.
That would be pretty handy. Unfortunately, that would involve a school of magic that I do not have access to just yet. But I could probably put you in connection with somebody who can get that done.
Yeah, that'd be appreciated. Yeah. Puts the gun back in his pocket. Back in his coat.
Oh man, Vinny.
And just in case they might come in useful, if Isope is surrounded by more of these feral kind, and Cresto is going to reach inside his coat and just produce the bullets of. Just try not to look at them when you shoot them. Try not to go frenzy yourself.
I'll keep that in mind, yeah. I'll try, yeah.
Did you really just tell him to not look when he's shooting?
Can you make it so my gun fires on target while I'm not looking? Or is that another school?
Yeah, he still can't do that. That would fall under forces, and he doesn't have any forces. Or, not forces,
Matter?
matter. That one.
Forces and mind, just bring them together.
Any chance of fate?
So he has successfully cast a spell on you guys that gives you, people have to enter Clash of Wills against you if they want to try to do anything with mind stuff.
Ah, beautiful. This mind is now a steel cage.
I don't feel any different, but I hope it's gonna work.
Elijah looks at you and says, well, I could try to dominate you if you want to make sure that it's working, but I'm not sure that our relationship would do well if I manage to succeed. I promise that I will drop the domination as soon as possible once I realize it's working.
Well, that's kind of you, but I suppose I will try directly in real action.
Yeah, I'll pass. It's not my wheelhouse there.
No harm in being safe. Come on then, Your Highness, bring it.
So for Clash of Wills, you are rolling, or no, it's actually the mage is rolling on your behalf. So, Willow Seeker won that Clash of Wills, which means that Elijah's Dominate attempt did not succeed. And so Elijah would, after a moment, kind of frown and, look at his friend the mage and then look at you all and says, well, I couldn't dominate him, so I guess it's working.
Let me try. Hold on, let me try. No, I need to see this for myself. Hold on. For all we know, you're just saying that this is all happening, not to doubt you or anything, but I'm doubting you. So.
Why so careful?
So you, Vinny, would go ahead and roll your Dominate and Blood Potency.
Are you aiming that at Dominic again?
Yeah.
Can I opt to just not resist it?
Let the other resist take effect.
That's what I mean. Don't make any effort to resist the dominate attempt.
The mage is rolling Arcanum and Gnosis.
A 1.
Ooh!
A 2.
Okay.
So,
So you don't resist it, and for all intents and purposes, you now have mesmerized as a condition for the scheme. Yeah, and just says, slap yourself. And I believe he does so. It didn't work. kind of a wizard are you? You're just like a street magician. I can't believe you. We come all the way out here. You're going on about like I'm a mind wizard. I do mind stuff. I'm sorry, I can't enchant your gun, Vinny. That's a different school of magic. I come out here. You say, "Oh, I can't dominate him." I test it out on him. I dominate him. Does that mean I'm just stronger than you, or are you a fraud?
Come on, Vinny. Don't be like that. It's 1 out of 2. At least now we still have the thrill of surprise when a mage tries to erase our memories again.
Can't believe this. Can you at least show me like a pilot trick?
So after you challenge him, the mage stares at you for a moment, and when you ask for a parlor trick, the mage tilts his head, and in your mind you can hear like this, and all of you can hear it, and all of you can at once tell that it's in your mind. He's not speaking out loud. You can hear his voice in your mind.
Okay, I'm convinced.
Oh, we all heard that.
I still have a question about this opaque. What can you tell us about her?
She has death 3, matter 2. So there you go, Vinny. There's your matter mage. And mind 2. So she is a morose with mind magic.
Ah, great.
And he would explain this in terms that you could understand. He would tell you that she can affect death, dead things. Her forte is, corpses, not non-living things, as well as, inanimate objects, matter.
Charming.
So she can make my gun kill things.
I think your gun can already do that.
I know, but like better. Like a step above.
Laughed, guys. No, but like better.
No, but like better.
Oh my god.
George just rolls his eyes and say, "What can you tell us about her personality? What kind of person is she, and why would she work with a vampire, in your opinion?"
After a moment, he says, "Well, I don't know much about her, but I do know that she is a very noble and honorable woman normally. So the fact that she's working with somebody to turn vampires feral, it doesn't make much sense. Maybe she needs money and whoever she's working with can offer it. Maybe she needs information and whoever she's working with can offer it. My guess would be that whoever she's working with has something on her. You guys seem to recognize him, like you said. It's, whoever that person is, maybe is holding something over her head. That's my best guess."
Very well then. So yes, Dominic, perhaps we should go meet her.
And not trigger happy, it seems. Because this might be more complicated than at first glance.
Well, we'll have to be careful, of course. We don't really know why she does this. We just suspect that it's not her personality, so how do you suggest we approach this situation?
With great caution, because it might be voluntary, it might not be voluntary. They might not be able to take advantage of an offer of working against whatever their deal might be. They might not be on our side if we offer help. They might, right? That might be a betrayal waiting to happen.
Obviously, we cannot trust anyone.
It's true.
How do you think we should bring the topic of what she's doing? We could just tell her that we know about her dealings, but we cannot expect her to react in any predictable way in that case. We could bring the topic more gently, but then again, we'll have to bring the topic eventually. Unless, Vinny, you're able to make her speak, just as you made Dominic slap himself. Who knows?
That would, because you are a vampire with strength to bash yourself, I would say that resolves the mesmerize condition. So
He's currently just resetting his jaw into place. Just...
And you get a beat.
okay, so you guys head to the library, yeah?
Yeah. Community college library.
Community College Library. So when you arrive, it's after dark, obviously. You're surprised to find that the doors to the library are even still open. There's only one person inside, and you immediately can tell that she is living. She's not kindred. She matches the description that Willow Seeker gave you of the woman named Opaque. And she seems to be just at a table, studying, looking through books. She looks up with a start when she notices you guys enter. How do you approach her? What do you do?
Only one person. That's correct.
Only one person, yep. Alone.
Which brand of vampire magic are we going to use, boys?
I tell you,
Try
guys, if we
stealthily.
solve the problem of those disappearances and those attacks, we need to know more about the city itself. So where is the section about the city? George says that very loudly. Well, very loudly, loudly enough to be heard from her.
Roll me wits and empathy, please. One success. Okay. So she eyes you all as you enter. She kind of winces when you get really loud, like, she's sharing everyone's thoughts of, this is a library, be quiet. But she ends up glancing towards a section of the library that you imagine has the information about the city. She doesn't offer that to you, but you do see her glance towards it and then glance towards you again before she looks down at her book, and she closes it and she stands and she says, well, I know a lot about the city. Is there something that I can help you with?
That's very kind of you. Yes, I suppose you could help us. Would you have noticed recently how many animals attack there is in the city? Silver Spring.
Roll me wits and empathy again.
that was really good.
That was really good.
Just watching her reactions for now.
Yeah, roll me with empathy again.
1.
Okay. So her eyes kind of widen, like, oh no, for just a second. But she does kind of collect herself, and she says, I know that there's been quite a few attacks. I've read about them in the newspaper, and it's awful, just awful.
Yeah, we were wondering what kind of animals could do such things in this region, and why they would do it.
You can all roll wits plus empathy, or anyone who cares to, anyway.
3 successes.
Is this a detecting lies, or is this just a...
It is detecting lies.
Perfect.
See, something you gotta know about Vinny. He doesn't have any empathy.
We can tell.
For anybody. I would like to make this a dramatic failure, if I may.
Okay. So who got 3? Live got none. Okay, so Cole and George, when she speaks, you can immediately tell that she's lying. She tells you that there are coyotes around the area that could do something like this. And she doesn't seem to be lying about that. You know that there are coyotes around, but she's clearly lying about the animals attacking in the first place. She knows that that's not what happened.
Oh, we've already explored the coyote possibility. They're behaving normally. Their population is just as usual. That's not coyotes. And now George is just trying to push her against the wall, essentially. Metaphorically, of course.
So she would frown and say that she isn't sure what else could be causing it. She'd hold up her hands, kind of nervously, kind of play with her hair, play with her fingertips. She would say, "Well, what about wolves? Have you thought about wolves?" And you all can roll wits and intelligence.
See, the thing about Vinny, he doesn't have much intelligence.
What does Vinny have?
A big gun.
A big gun.
I have a gun, I have a sword, and I've got Italian as a language.
I'm the one with the gun, son.
So, Dominic, do you regret already giving him some fire bullets?
Never. The thing is, you give that kind of thing to a moron, things only get interesting. There's always a story.
You know what? Fair enough.
Is this like out of earshot of Vinny? Or...
That was out of character.
Oh, okay.
In character, but out of
Just
game.
doing it.
Out of character in character.
That's funny. All right, so Cole, George, and Vinny all know that there is no wolf population in Silver Springs.
Just outright, there are no wolves.
Just no wolves, outright.
We've stumbled upon a conspiracy, fellas.
The hidden wolves
No
of Silver
wolves.
Spring County.
No wolves in the region. You were saying you knew the city well. You did a major in wildlife.
She shakes her head and says, "No, nature is not my forte at all.
What is your forte then?
The occult?
You're saying is... Would you think anything occult may have something to do with that then? That wasn't what we were especially looking for, but... Every lead is good to take.
You are going to have to roll manipulation plus persuasion minus 2.
I'm gonna willpower this one.
Okay.
Oh no.
Yikes.
I think I'll drama fail this one. If everyone agrees, because everyone's asking those cases, we're 4. It's not just me.
She shakes her head and she says, "I have no idea. You're asking the wrong person. I know that I am, I am specialized in occult, but that I more meant like where to find crystals and gems and not necessarily the supernatural. I can't help you there."
We'll just looks at Cole and the others.
Cole would be looking at what, because you said there was a bunch of materials out that she was studying.
Yes.
So just on the off chance, he'd be, while the talking was going on, and when he's not, watching for lies and whatnot, he'd be looking to see what's getting studied.
You can roll perception, and your trained observer would apply.
4 successes.
Nice. So you notice that she is looking into what seems to be old myths. She's studying anthologies of vampires mostly, it seems like. She's currently open to a page that looks like it is detailing the staking of a vampire. And that's what she seems to be paying attention to.
So Cole would kind of motion at the books, and he would say, I have a feeling that you know more than you are willing to say, and I also have a feeling I can tell you more about what you'd like to know. And he motions to the books to make it plain what he's referring to.
She would sort of step in front of them as to hide them from your view, but she would look as if she's considering the offer, and after a moment she says, okay, you tell me what I want to know and then I'll tell you what you want to know.
And Cole would glance to the others, and as he says, is the trade acceptable? Kind of asking both them and her at the same time.
You can see George nodding.
It's acceptable as it's gonna be, I think.
Dominic's just going to sort of lower the glasses again, sort of looking over the top, and tiny kind of pinprick red dots. Just kind of give that. Oh.
She'd kind of shy away from that.
Very well.
The world's full of the strange, isn't it?
You've got a point there. So she'd look back over at the book and she'd look up at you and she'd say, I've heard that staking doesn't kill vampires. Is that true?
That's right.
So then what does it do?
Kills them for a little while. You know?
Helplessness.
She nods at that and she says, okay. Well, is it difficult? It must be difficult.
Oh, it is.
She nods.
Requires a lot of.
She kind of looks at her hands and frowns for a moment, and she says, well, I'll think of something. Yes, I'll think of something.
You gotta make sure you don't miss.
She kind of frowns at the possibility of it and then nods very quickly.
One of us intimidate you?
She nods after a moment and she says, yes, and I don't know what to do to protect myself. Unfortunately, everything that I can do, he seems to have protection against, and I don't know where that protection is coming from. I can't do anything to dispel that.
Well, we told you what you wanted to know.
She nods and she frowns and says, well, a deal is a deal. What do you want to know?
Cole would look at George.
I'll tell you what we already know. We know what you've been doing with this vampire of yours. Very young looking, blonde with blue eyes. Is that correct?
She looks ashamed and she stares down at the floor, but she does nod after a moment.
We want to know why. Simple as that.
He has my sister, and he's threatening to turn her against her will if I don't cooperate with him.
That's him that you want to impale.
It's crossed my mind, yes.
Do you know why he does this?
She says after a moment that she knows that it's because he wants the territory, but she's not sure why, whether or not he just wants more territory or if there's something in the territory that he's particularly attached to, but she does know that he wants the territory and he doesn't want anyone else to claim it or have any reason to want to claim it.
So what have you been doing in the state park exactly?
The prince will give me traitors or prisoners, people that he's about to exile or execute, and I will use my magic to turn them feral, to make them want vampire blood, and basically turn them into cannibals. The idea is that somebody in the circle or the ordo, I'm not sure what those are, but that's what he calls them, the circle or the ordo would take the fall for that.
That's everyone else against him.
That's very much a conspiration.
No, it's right out of the Revolution playbook. Page 1. Divide and conquer. Whatever you want to call it.
What can we do about that? We have a witness, but I'm sure Miss Opaque here wouldn't speak, even to save her own life.
She seems ashamed after a moment, and she says, if you can guarantee the safety of my sister, I'll do whatever you want.
Where would the prince hold someone like that?
You can roll intelligence and streetwise.
2 successes.
There are some abandoned buildings near where he claims his haven that would most likely hold somebody like that.
We have the potential here for ally making, gentlemen. If we can secure the sister in one piece.
Of course, but do you have any idea where to start? Or how? The prince controls many domains now in the city.
That's true. It would definitely take some searching, but there's I have some ideas along those lines where we can start.
Question is, why does he want to ostracize the circle or whatever? Is he trying to push them up against a wall, or is he attempting to bring the fight to him? He wants them to bring the fight to him.
Portraying oneself as on the defense is a political win. By portraying others as the aggressors, you are justified in what you do.
He doesn't have to justify anything. He's the fucking prince.
If he wants to maintain the goodwill of those who might turn against him, he needs to portray himself as the good guy.
True.
Well, that is why he's trying to put the fall on the Circle of the Crown and the Order Dracul. But I don't have any interest in politics myself. If I knew we could take him and not have to face consequences afterwards, I would just suggest that we go to the park while he's there with Miss Opaque and confront him very straightforwardly, but that was probably a bad idea.
Most people call that suicide, yeah.
Guys. How would you proceed to find someone in this city, someone captured by the prince?
There are areas that we can use a bit of logic, and we can look at the areas that would be most likely for the prince to hold an important chess piece, as it were.
If you want, I could put a little thorn in his side as well. Force him to make a move. Got some friends, less than reputable servicemen in the police. We can always file a missing persons report, push it up the ranks.
True. How do you think that would work with someone who's being kept probably inside 24/7?
Well,
I'm not necessarily to find them, but like, what do you think it would do to the prince?
No, force him to. Hopefully, force him into having to move locations. You can get someone on the move; it's much easier than having to break into a fortress.
Possibly so. So, we can try to find where she is, and if we can't turn up anything, we might be able to force a move. True.
Just an
That
idea.
could also endanger the hostage. I don't deal with the police usually, I try not to.
Like I say, they're not the most upstanding members of a community. Put it that.
Your sister, when did you last see her?
It's been about 2 weeks now.
And you haven't told anyone about this.
He told me he would kill her if I did.
Cole, regarding those records, how far do they go?
I did not look back that far. I'm not sure how far they'll go.
So in this case, it's possible that the prince only worked with Miss Opaque over here.
Opaque speaks up and says, I can tell you that, as far as I know, I'm the only mage that he was working with.
Well, that is very strange, especially considering that there was no magic that you could do against him.
She nods and she says, I agree completely. I have no idea who it is that he's working with. Like I said, I was aware that I thought that I was the only one he was working with. But I will reach my feelers out and try to see who might be doing work for a mysterious patron as well.
What about your sister? Is she like you, or is she day-to-day normality, business as usual?
She shakes her head and she says, I have no idea what's going through her mind. She's just a human. She's normal. She doesn't know anything about any of this.
Anyone important, boyfriend, girlfriend, flatmate, whatever.
We have our parents are still alive. She's been dating the same guy for about 2 years now, so they're worried sick, but I can't say anything or he'll kill her.
Would Vinny be able to make any sort of roll to piece together if a mage could track down her sister?
You can roll intelligence and occult. Yes, you do gather that if mages can do things with inanimate objects and minds and corpses, that they can probably do something with tracking somebody as well.
So Vinny then pipes up and says, so let me get this straight. You've never maybe asked for a favor from another wizard to track her down?
She shakes her head and says, no, with the prince being untargetable by magic, I have no idea which of the mages are working with him and which of them aren't. So if I ask the wrong one, it could spell trouble for us both.
That is true. Well, perhaps magic doesn't work, but what about mundane means? Someone could follow the sheriff or the prince, maybe?
I know the sheriff well enough. And knowing sheriffs, as I have done, quite often they like someone to do the dirty work. I can try and ingratiate myself. Offer for company is there, but might get ugly.
That could also work. So we have some avenues of approach then.
I suppose I could do that too, yes. Obviously I cannot speak about the prince of what we discovered, and so my deal with him is obviously inexistent. But he mentioned that it was possible to speak to the sheriff about these things. Jobs to do, so perhaps I could talk to her. But I'm afraid the two are close to each other. That's what I've heard, at least. So wouldn't that be dangerous too?
The whole thing's dangerous all around, to be fair.
Well, Opaque, would you care accompanying me to the Ordo Dracul to undo what you've done?
You're going to have to roll to persuade her to do that. So go ahead and roll presence and persuasion.
Striking look, confident. Does it work?
Yeah? Yes, it does.
I'm going to spend willpower too, because I kind of want it to succeed. 3 successes.
So after a moment, she kind of picks her head up and she says, "Can you promise that you'll keep me safe if I do that?"
I can promise I will do my best.
She nods and she seems to accept that and says, "Then I'll come with you, yeah."
I will need you to explain exactly all that happens to one person. Don't
She
worry, I will
nods.
be here to tell him that you were forced into doing it.
She nods and she says, "I can do that, sure."
By the way, how does the prince comes into contact with you?
He sends me text messages.
And what does he ask you? To go to the park and that's about it?
And yes, and use my magic on the vampires that I find there. He brings them after their trial, before their execution or their exile, and expects me to do my magic to them.
Do any of us remember any trials recently?
So Cole and Dominic, you specifically do not recall any trials recently. Vinny doesn't remember anything, but you specifically remember that there have been no trials recently.
Not surprising that he'd be lying to her.
Guilty until proven guilty.
Now, besides these guilty parties, the prince alone.
She wouldn't know. She normally shows up after the prince has already brought who she's supposed to be doing magic to, so she doesn't know who else is with him.
Well, I suggest we all be very careful. It seems the prince has ways to track people. I think I'm going to change phone and get rid of this app. Just in case. But let's all be careful. We don't know if the prince's justice might come upon us, nor when, nor with who.
Wise to be careful.
Indeed.
All right. Well, with that, we will go ahead and call the session there.